Hi, everybody. I'm Ron. I'm the founder of coins.ph. We are a Philippines-based financial services platform. We have a very simple but very ambitious goal, which is to make financial services available to everybody and every Filipino. But today I'm not here so much to talk about what we do at Coins, but I'm actually here to share a little bit about my story. And a question that I get asked almost every day, which is why Philippines? And I figured since this is a room full of people who live in the Philippines, it's not going to be very hard to convince you that this is a great place to be in. But I can share maybe some of the things that brought me here and also remind all of us, who live here day to day, like, what are some of the factors that make this a great country for, both for living in and for creating and innovation. And this is a relatively unscripted talk. I didn't do a lot of preparation, so bear with me, and hopefully actually whatever comes out is a bit more coming out of the heart. Going really far back, I was born in the US, actually grew up outside of the US, and I came back to the US for college. I studied computer science, machine learning, and machine vision. And after graduating, I ended up declining a job offer with a big consulting firm, and instead starting my own company. That company failed miserably within about maybe 1 or 2 months, and then I tried something else, and I tried something else, and I tried something else, and eventually I started a company called TalkBox, which was a video communication platform. Investors got interested pretty early, and we managed to build out the team and the technology pretty quickly out of the Bay Area, out of Palo Alto. We grew the team to about 30-something people. Eventually, the company was acquired by Telefonica, and I actually left a bit earlier and helped start Innovation Endeavors, which is a venture capital fund. I spent a couple years at Innovation Endeavors. I helped them set up some of the operations and invest, and eventually kind of figure out that I wanted to go back. I'm always like being in the trenches, so I wanted to go back and do something entrepreneurial again, even though the fund was clearly very successful. At that point in my life, I've already kind of tried a few things, and I knew that, one, if I'm going to build something, I want to build something that is big. And if I'm going to build something that is big and I'm going to dedicate, a good chunk of my life to it, I want it to be meaningful as well. I wanted to do something that has strong, positive social impact. So not just a big business. I've kind of gone back and forth on this, like throughout my career. Even in college, I always thought, okay, when I make it big, then I'll go back and and do like philanthropic work and and all that stuff. But at some point, I realized, hey, there's no sense in waiting. Like, if you want to do something, you do it now, right? So you incorporate it into what you're doing, and so this was about almost 5 years ago. And honestly, I had no idea what I was going to do. So I took a bit of time off. I went traveling in Southeast Asia. Went through Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, and I traveled actually across Southeast Asia a few times before. And there was something that I saw that was different this time. I would go to really remote areas, like places where there is no running water, electricity runs a couple hours a day. You have a sari-sari store with like very few products to buy. But whenever I'd leave, people would always pull out a cell phone and try to connect with me on Facebook. And this was, mind you, this is the end of 2012, beginning of 2013, and I knew Facebook was big, but I didn't realize like how big it is, because man, it was everywhere. Like when you went to buy a SIM card or to top up your phone, the top-up cards, had like the telco logo this small, and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram like so big, right? So that made me realize that something was changing, something was happening, and as an entrepreneur, inflection points are always fascinating. I realized basically that finally, the market here is reachable. You can actually drive and provide services. And even though most people still lack access to very basic services like healthcare, education, finance, commerce, we have a channel to reach them. And that was actually that observation that made me decide to actually stay and not go back. I spent the following 2-3 months actually going market by market and spending time with investors and entrepreneurs and trying to learn what was going on and actually decide where I want to be. And the last country on that tour was Philippines. There were a few things that really excited me about the market here. Obviously we all know the economy has been growing very fast. 6 to 7% faster than even other developing markets. And at the same time, there's still a lot of people who are not included in that growth. So there is still a lot of kind of open area to use technology for social good. The second thing, and this was, I had to really do a clean business analysis, right? I looked at the level of penetration of technology and how technology is being applied. And this, I think, is true throughout all emerging markets. There are so many low-hanging fruit because if you look at, places that are driving innovation like Silicon Valley, where like probably 80-90% of both venture capital and talent are centered, they're really busy focused, solving maybe 1% of the world's problems. And here, if you open your eyes, you will find so many things where you can apply those same skills and those same technologies and actually make real impact and change people's day-to-day lives. So that was the second thing. The third thing was actually when you start a company, you're going to be doing a lot of experimentation. I learned that early on when I was starting my previous companies. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. You have to do things maybe 9 times until the 10th time you succeed. And so it's really important to actually have low, be very lean and have low costs. And I think Philippines is great because the operating costs here are very low. Even renting an office, experimenting, etc. It's very conducive for innovation because the cost of experimentation is not so high. And the last one, which for me was actually one of the most important aspects, is actually the personal aspect. I've made a strong commitment for building a company, and I'm going to be spending a large portion of my life wherever it is that I build this company, and it had to be somewhere where I felt at home and I would enjoy living in. And actually, I can say, for my first week in the Philippines, I really felt at home, and I think it's something that culturally is like very unique to this country. It's not just the English and the language, it's really the mindset that, I never feel like I am not from here. And this has been, I've been here for 4 years and it still like holds true. Like every day that I'm here, I feel, a little bit better. So I know it's been a good decision. So those are really kind of the 4 things that anchored me to start something here and to start something in an emerging market. And that kind of kicked off a longer process of then figuring out what I wanted to do. And I went actually industry by industry. I looked at a lot of different opportunities. I looked at innovation in the US. I looked at opportunities and issues in the market here. And I kind of pinpointed there's maybe 3 different types of innovation or types of opportunities that you would see for technology in these markets, or in this market that you can kind of categorize things, right? So one of them is labor arbitrage. We see a lot of that happening. That's the BPOs, right? Kind of taking advantage of the fact that labor is inexpensive in the Philippines to solve a problem in another market. That's obviously a big opportunity from a business perspective, and it is helping improve a lot of people's lives. But it's hopefully a short-term opportunity because what we'd like to see is, people's earning capacity increase, right, in the Philippines over time, and this kind of opportunity, this arbitrage opportunity closing out. The second one, which is a great business opportunity, is bringing in business models that are successful elsewhere and importing them into the local markets. Great examples of that are Lazada and Zalora. There's kind of a written blueprint. You come into the market, you execute, and you build a business. Great business, great business sense because the risk is relatively low. You're just confined to execution. And the third one, which is the one that I found most exciting, was looking at opportunities that are unique to the market locally that other entrepreneurs are not thinking of because they're not actually based here. What are problems and challenges that are specific to emerging markets that don't exist anywhere else, and how can we use technology to solve them? And I think very early on I realized that's probably what I'm most excited about because I like to do stuff that is creative and challenging. And then I also knew that if you're going to build something big, of course you have to build something that is applicable to almost everyone. Like even if you look at the list of like top 10 or 20 wealthiest individuals in the Philippines, you'd see that all of them are in the industries that touch almost every person's life. So it has to be mass appeal and mass value add. We ended up locking in on financial services, and this was actually coming from straight observation. I mean, I had personal challenges using the financial system here and getting, anything from getting a bank account to getting funds transferred here from the US to getting money out of the ATM when I wanted to go surfing in Siargao. But around me, I saw a lot of other people having a hard time as well. It's, hardworking Filipinos who are abroad who spend, sometimes 3-4 years away from their family, and then, to get their money back home, they have to line up for, half of their free day. They pay about 6 to 8% on average, which, if you really think about it, 8% is 1/12, so it's 1 month out of the year you're actually working for Western Union instead of sending money to your family. And here in the Philippines as well, people getting on a tricycle to go to a payment center to pay for something they purchased online or to pay their electricity bill. Quite a lot of friction and difficulties, and we thought, hey, we can use technology to make this a little bit better. The kind of key observation that led to what we're doing actually, and it's a bit of still a shocking statistic even for me, is that when you look at it, more Filipinos have Facebook accounts than bank accounts today, right? So the answer is there, right? Like you can connect with customers. You just need to find the right way to do it and to lower the barriers and to make it easier. And if you look at the way that traditional banking is structured, right, it's unfortunately it doesn't work very well for an emerging market. You have to maintain branches, tellers, armored trucks. All those things cost a lot of money. And in contrast, you typically deal with customers that are relatively low savings rate, right? Meaning that when they walk into the branch, the bank is actually going to lose money. So it's very hard it's not the banks don't want to cater for all the population, it's just that it's very difficult for them. So we kind of have a perfect storm because we have a market where there's a lot of need. We have existing players who have a hard time serving a very large segment of the market. According to BSP, I think it's 73% of Filipinos that don't have bank accounts and less than 5% who have cards. And if you kind of take off the payroll and inactive accounts, it's maybe 10% financial reach of the existing banks. And then you add in technology and mobile and things like blockchain, and you can start to kind of connect the dots and build something new that looks a little bit different. We've been doing this for about 3 years. I actually don't want to talk too much about coins, but actually more about my journey through it, which we've learned a lot. We've had the fortune to have good traction in the market, but I think exciting things for me has been, building a team in the Philippines. Like one of the big challenges for us early on is how to build the right culture into the company. Because we wanted to, in order to operate the type of company we want to build, we needed to create a different type of thinking in the company. So we hire a lot of very young employees coming out of top schools in the Philippines, from Ateneo, LaSalle, UP. Mostly because at that point they've not absorbed any other work culture, right? And we built a culture where the organization is flat. There is really very minimal hierarchy. We encourage people to question, to challenge, to not be afraid to raise issues and concerns. We give them a lot of freedom. There's no, for example, we don't count like vacation days. People can come in and come out whenever they want, because we think that when we hire someone, we hire them because we already trust them. And we want them to realize their own like inner potential. And we've also adopted a lot of things, I think, from, I think there's a lot of things that make the culture in our company very special because it is a Filipino company. I think kind of the relationship and the closeness between people, like, really make this like one of the most exciting and fun companies I've ever worked in. Yeah, so I think kind of to sum all this up, because I can't really sum it because I'm not at the end of the journey yet. We're kind of like in the middle. But looking back 4 years into this journey, a lot of the early points have actually validated really well, which is really rare when that happens. I'm still super excited about the Philippines. I think if you look at venture capital investment, it's just beginning to come into the market now. We've had, I think, 3 or 4 big venture investments coming in just over the last couple of months. So unlike Indonesia was really booming the last 2 years, but now kind of everybody's waking up to the fact that Philippines is interesting. I think the key strengths of Philippines are just going to make it shine more, like the human capital, the culture, and also kind of the extent of the opportunity. And for me personally, like I said, like I think the best gauge for a good relationship is one where like every day that goes by you actually feel better. And for me, like every month and every day and every month that goes by, like on this journey, I'm actually happier and happier with the decisions that I've made. So I'll end it here.